Concealed carriers of Reddit, have you ever had to draw your weapon? Have you ever had to fire it? Yes, I have pulled my sidearm. No. I have never had to fire it. It all happened pretty quickly. I was walking home from dinner at about 10:00. The neighborhood I lived in has certain areas that aren't the friendliest. Someone approached me and asked me for change. I said no. After I passed, he said something along the lines of, "How about I take that wallet off you then?" I turned and drew my weapon. He was about 3 steps away with a skateboard raised over his head. Apparently staring down the wrong end of a gun changed his mind. He dropped the skateboard and left. I backed away and continued home. Very relieved that I didn't have to fire. Sweet. Free skateboard. I've CCW since 1992 and have drawn twice. Never fired at anyone. I used to work at a bar in my college years. There had been a dust up with some jerk that our bouncers threw out earlier that night. I was closing and took a break to walk one of the bartenders to her car. About 50 yards into the parking lot, this pickup comes hauling us from the far end and screeches to a stop in front of us. The bartender was my girlfriend at the time. This guy jumps out of the passenger side with an axe handle and says something like, "It takes 5 of you guys to FCK up my friend. Now I'm gonna FCK you up." I had a 380 tucked in my waistband. Pulled it and racked around. That's all he needed to see. He put his hands up and got back into the truck and took off. Turns out that, unknown to me, the firing pin in that gun was broken and it wouldn't have worked anyway. I've since upgraded. I haven't had to pull my handgun in the 11 years I've had my permit. But I have pulled out a shotgun when people entered my house in the middle of the night after cutting the screen through a window I left open. I was working a split shift that got me getting home around 1 AM after my commute. I asked them to sit down while I phoned the police. The cops took a while and by the time we got there we were talking about all kinds of shit. One of the guys opened up and told me his life story. They broke in to look for money to feed their drug habit and were both unarmed. But I didn't know that at the time. I wasn't going to get close enough to search them. Lots of good information out there. Something I haven't seen and I think is important. If you do pull and or use your firearm, call 911 and when the police arrive say, "I plan on giving a statement and fully cooperating in your investigation. But only after consulting my lawyer." When you enter a life and death situation, the immense amount of adrenaline and other chemicals dumped into your body will inhibit your fine motor skills, including talking. You will be overcome with exhaustion minutes after the event. You will not be in the normal state of mind. The federal government requires all agents WHO US deadly force to wait at least 24 hours before giving any statement. If it's good enough for them, it is for you too. One of my older friends was walking with his wife and daughter when a man pulled a knife and started to advance towards them. He pulled out his pistol and trained it on the guy. For some reason the man thought my friend was bluffing and kept getting closer. My friend tells him he's not afraid to shoot, but the guy won't back off. Finally he clicks it off safe and the man hears it and backs off. Good thing he didn't have a Glock. My father was working late one night with his buddy. Both had carry license. Work is flanked by car dealerships and security guard from one got in a shootout with thieves on the other lot. His buddy ran out and pulled his gun. My father called the cops. His buddy fired off a few shots at the thieves and ended up losing his license. My father said he never saw the need to draw. Edit. To add info. They heard pop shots. It wasn't an all-out gun battle. Only one guy firing from the thief's side and about 300 feet between the two. At night with minimal light. He saw no need to defend the security guard because the two firing shots were so far away from each other. This is a good example of what not to do with a CCW permit. They tell you from day one that having a CCW doesn't make you an off-duty cop or superhero. Nope. At one point I thought I might get mugged in a parking lot because of some suspicious behavior, but I didn't have to touch my pistol. I never wanted to use my weapon, so I was very aware of what was going on around me and avoided situations I thought were unsafe. A former co-worker was a carrier. He had this rule: if you need to draw your weapon, then you should probably use it. That being said, he would purposefully avoid any situation where he thought he would actually have to use it. He is retired and lives in a neighborhood that used to be nice but has since gone downhill. So I definitely don't blame him for carrying. You're telling me your neighbor is Clint Eastwood in Gran Torino? I have had to draw once but didn't fire. I woke at 1230 am to screaming outside. 5 guys were stomping some poor teenager in the kidneys on the ground. I had been in bed with my wife. Naked. Told her to call 911 and I grabbed gym shorts, Crocs, my 9mm and an extra clip. Ran to the front door knowing that these 5 guys could kill him and B, I can't fight 5 guys. Apparently they pushed this kid out of a moving truck first. So I drew, racked the slide, and then had to fight every urge I had not to do a yard pop. But they turned, seen the gun and all knelt down as I commanded. By then cops and an ambulance shown up. The cops told me I was completely okay. And in fact did something that saved a life. The strangest thing is they all listened immediately. No. I've never had to draw it and I've carried for about 5 years. When you responsibly carry a firearm, you go to greater lengths to avoid confrontation than an average person might. Carrying isn't for everyone. If you can't leave your ego at the door or have a temper, it might not be the thing for you. Also, a common saying among people that conceal carry is I'd rather have it and never have to use it than need it once and not have it. Yes and yes. To be fair though, I work in a security field, and sometimes the contracts are of a high risk. I've only once had to draw whilst not on the clock and I did not have to use it then. Can you tell about an instance when you fired? Also, what gun do you recommend carrying? Never and never. If you're going to carry a deadly weapon, situational awareness is your biggest ally. An old Kansas City cop told me one time that, in most cases, if you have to pull your sidearm, you have failed. I saw an explanation of concealed carry somewhere on Reddit once. It basically said now that you carry a gun you will lose all fights and arguments. You will swallow your pride. You will walk away. Because if you get into something you will end up introducing that firearm. That's it below. I live in Illinois. Shudder. Only once. I was in my house and heard a series of loud crashes by my back door as if someone was trying to bust it down. I had my gun pulled and at the corner of the room where I could see the door within seconds. Nothing looked out of place. I realized the motion sensitive light was off that is outside the door, indicating that no one walked up. But I proceeded with caution anyway. I remember consciously trying to calm myself down because my adrenaline had me shaking a little bit. So I didn't rack one in until I knew I might have to use it. Plus the sound of the slide is a pretty good deterrent too. Turns out one of my cats knocked my bowling ball down the stairs. Pranksters. I didn't draw but I shot. Sat on it weird of something. Shattered my thigh bone. Holster? Any decent one should stop the trigger from engaging. Overwrite. A wise man once told me, never point the barrel of the gun at something you don't intend on destroying. Working in and around Detroit. Thankfully, I've never had to draw or shoot. I have not. Goodbye. It sounds and should be obvious. If you must pull it, be prepared to shoot it. If you must shoot it, be prepared to hurt another human being. If you must hurt someone, be prepared to kill that person, someone's son or daughter, someone's husband or wife, someone's best friend. If it's you, or your loved one, or him/her, it's worth it. But be prepared all the same. If you must hurt someone, be prepared to kill that person, someone's son or daughter, someone's husband or wife, someone's best friend. TBH. Once a situation comes to that point, I would not care or consider that the person I'm getting ready to shoot is someone's son, daughter, husband, wife, etc. I'm only going to take that drastic action when the other person has decided to try and take or seriously damage the life of me or my family first. It was their choice to be that aggressor and thus their choice to die that day. Had a CCW in Ohio for a few years before I moved. I only carried a few times and never had to draw. But I never would have drawn without firing. I don't point a weapon at anything I don't intend on shooting. Out of curiosity, why did you only carry a few times? I ask because I've heard of lawyers using this against CCW holders. They basically say if you only carry certain times, you should probably just stay home those times. They can then go on to say they were planning on getting into trouble that day, etc. Because of that I try to carry all the time when possible. I've had to draw once. Never fired. Drunk guy was getting a bit violent in the parking lot of a bar. Almost yes and no. Someone tried to break into my apartment one night while I was home. Pulled out my Ruger SR9C. Stood by the door and let the arsehole know that the door wasn't locked for my protection. It was locked for his. Cocked the gun so he could hear it and he took off running. I'm a white 24-year-old girl in not the best part of town. I'm probably the only white person that lives in my apartment complex that I know of. Few of my neighbors have said that if anyone messes with me, to let them know and they'll take care of. I have bodyguards. But it was really late that night and I didn't have the chance to let anyone know what was going on, so I took matters into my own hands. If asked whether I would ever fire it for protection, yes. If it came to that, I would shoot someone in self-defense. If that person had continued to break into my apartment and succeeded, he would have been shot. Plain and simple. No and no. As a CWP holder, I find that there are only a few times where it is actually legal for me to carry, and when it is, there is no need for it. I go to a state university. Many shootings happen on or near schools. I am not legally allowed to carry on school property. I like to go to the bars. I am not legally allowed to carry into a bar, yet. If I don't go to a bar, and I am not working, I will most likely be enjoying a cocktail or two. I am not legally allowed to carry when I am drinking. If I am at work, I can't carry there either, yet. We serve alcohol. And I am not legally allowed to carry in a place that serves alcohol. This leaves me to be able to carry at the grocery store, when I am walking my dog, and when I go to the mall. That accounts for about 3% of my week and is arguably some of the least threatening positions I will be in.